Hello, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to kick this off. You're all here because you have some interest in the scientific review of ingredient submissions, the SRIS process. I hope you're here to learn. I hope we can all learn together. And with that, I'm going to welcome Austin Therill, our Executive Director.
I hope everyone's doing all right this afternoon. And sorry, I'm going to get my notes here, because if not, they give me a mic, I'm just going to start rambling here if I don't stay on track. So really, thank you all for being here this afternoon. Coming here to learn and really to support SRIS and this new program. It's been a labor of love that we've done, put together very, very quickly, and we're excited for you all to learn a little bit more about it today and hopefully leave here and feel a little bit enthusiastic about having this as another regulatory pathway, another option. So the last few weeks as we've been putting this workshop together, and I've been thinking about, where we're at right now, and I think about we had over 200 people registered to attend the session this afternoon. We have people online as well. And I go back to the point in time in 2024 when unfortunately, we heard the news that the old AAFCO ingredient definition process was ending in October of that year. So it's coming to an end, and I never would have guessed at that point in time, that we would be here where we're at today, talking to you about SRIS. So it's been an exciting process and a learning process at the same time. At the time when we first started having those preliminary discussions, I didn't know where you all, as an industry, if you would be supportive of a new AAFCO managed process. I didn't know if AAFCO members would be supportive over a new AAFCO managed process, or how many people would tell me I was crazy for suggesting that. And I certainly didn't know if we would find the right people, the right partners to help bring that vision to life. That was a really big question mark for us. But here in 2026, today, I can confidently say that as an industry, you all have really come alongside us and supported us in helping make SRIS a reality. There's been a lot of you in this room that we'll hear from today that have been a part of the steering committee and really put a lot of effort in to make this possible. And a lot of the AAFCO members, I would say 100% are in support of AAFCO and SRIS in this process. And we've been lucky enough to find a new partner, Kansas State Olathe, who's really been behind us 100%, and that we trust and admire for their belief in AAFCO and the vision of SRIS. So I really want to thank them for that as well. So, it's probably a little bit cheesy, but true that, we all know sometimes things do need to end for something new to begin, and that's where we're at. And we're excited about SRIS as an option for AAFCO and an option for you all. And when I say option, I use that word very purposefully because from the beginning, AAFCO has never wanted to compete or try to replace any of the other regulatory pathways that are out there. We just wanted to provide another option that's innovative for you all as the industry to potentially utilize to bring new ingredients to the market. So we believe that SRIS is innovative, it's flexible, and it's timely enough to support you all as an industry in your efforts to bring safe and nutritious products to the market for the pets and livestock here in the U.S. So it's also been AAFCO's goal within that too from the beginning to stay as aligned with FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine throughout this whole process. From our very earliest conversations within the steering committee and within the task force that AAFCO developed, we strategically based the SRIS requirements off of FDA's GRAS notice program because we wanted to stay aligned as possible with our federal counterparts, our co-regulatory partners at FDA. But however, we all know we live in some politically uncertain times. And so, I'll just share this openly before it's submitted as our very first question during a Q&A session today. AFCO's desire has always been and will continue to be that we want SRIS to align with the federal requirements or to be federally recognized. And we feel like that we're there right now, and that's a really, really great step. But if there are changes in the future, if something happens within FDA or within our government to where we just won't allow us to do that, I want you all to know that AFCO is committed to supporting SRIS and to continuing this pathway as an option, as long as our members and you all continue to be supportive of that, and that's where we stand. So I just, in closing, really want to thank you again for being here. Just today, also throughout this week, I think you all know that your presence here at AFCO meetings, your willingness to participate in open dialogue is really what makes AFCO meetings special. And really, I hope that you're able to leave this afternoon with a better understanding of SRIS. And I hope that you're all as excited about this process and the program as we are, and really the new possibilities this brings for everyone. So thank you for being here today, and we look forward to a productive meeting. All right, so they also left me up here to the mic for the first couple sessions, so just bear with me. But I'd really like to transition at this point in time to introduce kind of the SRIS team and the people within the process that have just really been instrumental in kind of creating this, so that you all in the room can kind of put some names to faces and find some contacts to talk to, maybe throughout the rest of the week. And so I'm going to grab a mic, but Garrett and Haley, if you can introduce yourself first. We're going to go around the room. We're going to introduce the SRIS team, the AFCO Ingredient Definitions Committee chairs, and then the AFCO investigators. And if you all could just kind of tell us your name, who you're with, and what your role within SRIS is, that would be a really great start, so we kind of get to meet some people.
Hello, my name is Dr. Garrett Asherburner. So I did my PhD from University of Georgia in poultry science. After I graduated, had a short stint at Center for Veterinary Medicine, Division of Animal Food Ingredients, and here recently, within the past, I think it's almost been 6 months, I had the opportunity to go to Kansas State University and work as the program manager for this SRIS program. So I'll transition over to our scientific lead.
All right, you stole my thunder there. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Haley Larson. I am an assistant professor at Kansas State University's Olathe campus, which hopefully you've all heard a little bit about. It's the university's innovation campus, which means it was designed specifically to work with industry, trade associations, and other federal agencies. We're built to be a little different than our counterparts in Manhattan, but that's okay. And it's part of why we feel that we're adequately able to support AFCO in the SRIS mission in both of its development and its launch. And as Garrett mentioned, I would be the scientific lead for the pathway, and happy you're all here today.
All right, so next we have the chairs of AFCO's Ingredient Definition Committee.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Erin Bubb. I'm with Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. I'm just one half of a team that leads the Ingredient Definitions Committee.
And I'm David Snell. I'm with the Office of Indiana State Chemist. I jumped in with IDC a couple years ago. Aaron promoted me to co-chair last year, so thank you everybody for coming.
Yeah. And if you're an AFCO investigator in the room, can you please stand now, and we'll run a mic around to you. I think George can help with that.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Ali Kashani. I retired from Washington State Department of Agriculture, and I'm a feed term investigator.
Mark LeBlanc from the Office of the Indiana State Chemist, and I'm the molasses products investigator, because there's a lot of molasses made in Indiana. So.
Good afternoon. I'm Trish Dunn with the Office of Indiana State Chemist. I am amino acids, animal protein products, and non-protein nitrogen.
I'm Dave Edwards, and I'm the investigator for food additives that go to the FDA, as well as we work closely with Nathan Price on the GRAS notifications that go to the FDA. And so I think a lot of you know those are included in the OP as well. And so we keep those flowing to IDC and then on up.
I'm Marissa Koss. I work for the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. I am the enzymes, DFMs, and fermentation products investigator.
All right. Oh, I guess I'm told said I'm supposed to go next. So I'm Jamie Good with the North Dakota Department of Ag. I am the screenings investigator and also the yeast investigator. Oh, you want it back?
Yeah.
I'm Dan King. With the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and I am the processed animal waste investigator, along with the grains, which also includes distillers' products.
I'm Justin Hill with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and I am the marine products investigator.
And Casey Gutenberger, I'm with California Department of Food and Ag, and I am the citrus products investigator. It's a pretty quiet section, but here I am.
Intelligence test just passed. Back to the Ingredient Definitions Committee chairs. When there are vacancies, by default, David and I fill them in until we can find another regulator that is open and willing to take on a new section. However, historically here for the last several years, I have had miscellaneous products. So that's forage products, which is alfalfa and Lespedeza. And I also, by default, have human food byproduct. So all this week you're going to hear us say, if there's anybody who is a regulator who's interested in taking on any of these open positions, please come see us. And you can talk to another investigator as well if you would like to know a little more about what goes on there.
And I am, originally I was technical additives and kind of picked up special purpose products, which is a lot of, like it sounds, special purpose, odd things. But I've also picked up preservatives, milk products, and very recently vitamins. So I am willing to give up a couple of those to whoever wants to pick those up. Yeah.
And so lastly, and we do have, I think, probably some more investigators that were not able to make it today, but you should have a resource sheet in front of you. And if you flip that over on the back, there's contact information for a lot of those people, so you can get in touch with them. Last bit of introductions. If you're in the room and you're part of the steering committee, would you please stand up and introduce yourself as well? We're running the mic around.
Oh, Leah was back here.
George, I think most of them are up front.
Leah was in the back. She's tricking me.
Hi, I'm Barrett Foss, and I'm with the National Grain and Feed Association.
Redheads get to go first. Leah Wilkinson, American Feed Industry Association.
Christy Smedley. I'm just Christy Smedley.
Hi, and I'm Emily Helms. I'm officially with Biomedit, but I represent the Enzyme Technical Association in my role on the steering committee.
Charles, you're in the back too. I just want George to get his exercise in.
Don't stop me. Don't stop me while I was back here. You just said it.
Charles Starkey with the North American Renders Association.
All right. So thank you all. I think that's everyone. If we've missed anyone, please come find me and let me know. I want to make sure that everyone in the room just has an opportunity to kind of put some names to faces so that you can, you know who you can reach out to. I think these relationships, we talk about it all the time. You've probably heard us. But coming to AFCO and meeting some of these regulators and some of these industry representatives face to face really goes a long way in helping build relationships and knowing who you can reach out to at different points in time. So we are going to jump off here and with our first presentation. I jokingly told someone this morning that I'm refusing to shave until we get our first SRIS submission together, so we're going to keep that going. My wife hopes that comes soon. So, our first presentation we're going to do today is really we're going to cover the SRIS process and the process flow and kind of the administrative pieces of that, which is me, and then I'm going to get out here and hand this to people much more knowledgeable than myself. So kind of starting off, just again on the administrative piece, the most important takeaway from this slide is step one in this process is to reach out to definitions@afco.org. So there's a lot of you that have been around AFCO for a long time, have probably our contact information. We field a lot of emails through the afco@afco.org inbox. My personal inbox, Garrett's information has been out there as well, and Haley's too. And so just know that as you are thinking about potentially submitting something through SRIS, that step number one is really to reach out to us formally through that definitions@afco.org inbox. That's where we'll be monitoring that and scheduling, further conversations, further meetings that need to go from there. The second point on that I really want to share is, and I know this is challenging because a lot of times with some of these ingredients, these are new or novel type ingredients, and I've seen over the last few months as we've started having more conversations that people sometimes don't want to share a lot of information initially, and I completely get that, but it does help us, when you reach out initially to that email address, if you can share as much information as possible, that helps us to know, what the ingredient is, what you're proposing the intended use for, any other details you're willing to share, because those next steps for us, we're reaching out to these investigators that we just met in the room and reaching out to Garrett and having discussions about, okay, who's the right individuals to work with this company? And so the more you can tell us from the beginning, the more helpful it is for us to get the right people involved to help you. I know a few months ago I would get emails and just say, hey, we have a submission, can we set up a meeting? It's it's helpful for me to know who it is and what you want to propose. So step two of that process, when we receive that email, we're looking to go ahead and start evaluating it for its applicability with SRIS. And so that information is helpful there as well too. And we need to know, again, who we're going to assign it to as an ingredient investigator. But also, if it's appropriate for SRIS. I think we've been pretty clear from the beginning of having these conversations that this is just an option. There, depending on the ingredient type or the intended use, that may well still need to go. Someone may need to call Dave and submit a food additive petition, or it might be a good candidate for an AFIC consultation. And so, really, that information helps us make that determination, at least preliminarily, if we can. Or it might be something that's already defined. We have gotten a couple emails so far where we've looked at what the proposal is and says, hey, this already fits within the definition. As long as it adheres to this, I think you're good to go. You don't need to redefine something. So that's helpful as well. And so just note that if you reach out to us through any other channels or through Kansas State or Olathe, we will get in touch with you, but we're immediately going to tell you, send an email to definitions@afco.org. So note one for today. So submission step process 2, again, once we have received that email, we've evaluated it, we've put you in touch with the right investigator. That person is really your go-to individual to help you begin to get your dossier together. They're going to help you review, put a potential definition together, look at that intended use, look at all of the relevant data requirements that we need as part of our submission guide, and really help make sure you have all the ducks in a row as much as possible for a successful submission through SRIS. And so at that time, that person's also going to be able to notify Garrett as the program manager whether or not there is intent from you as a submitter to put a dossier together, and if there's any need for a pre-consultation meeting or anything like that to kind of have a little bit more discussion. if you were in some of the meetings earlier this morning, I did share, right now we're calling them pre-consultation meetings. Since this is a new process and we've started this, really officially in October, we're not really saying no to very many meetings. We're happy to jump on some calls, even informally, to talk through what the idea is, what the concept of the intended use, instead of it being a very formal, kind of a more formal pre-consultation meeting. And so we're having those, and we'll continue to do those at least for the foreseeable future. We have had a few that people just want to kind of pick our brains about and reach out. They kind of want to treat it a little bit like like we're consultants, but that's okay for now. So moving on, you reached out to definitions at AFCO.org. We've put you in touch with an investigator. Now that investigator has said, hey, they have all the things that they need. We've had maybe a pre-consultation meeting, and what we're going to do now is put you in touch a little bit more formally with Garrett as a program manager. And what Garrett will do at that point in time, once you've verbally said, hey, I'm interested in putting a submission together, is we'll provide a cost estimate. So that will be based on the pricing tiers of the SRIS program, which you can find online. That basic submission, full submission, or the expanded submission, a basic scientific review, full submission, or expanded submission process. And so Garrett will put that together based off of what you've told us and what you want or are intending to do with the ingredient. And at the bottom of that page, there is an intent to submit or intent to cancel line. So what we ask for at that point in time is some of a commitment from the submitter that within 14 days you're going to review that cost estimate and let us know if you intend to submit a full dossier. And really that for us helps us kind of from spinning our wheels and going ahead and getting SMEs lined up and thinking through the whole expert panel process. We have some commitment from you that says, yep, we're going to sign. We have an authorized representative from our firm. We're going to sign, and we're going to begin the process to put our full dossier together. And so that's what we ask within 14 days of receiving that cost estimate. So again, just some notes on that. So the acceptance of that proposed cost estimate, it just represents your intent to submit that full dossier. It does not initiate that SRIS review or start that clock for that 60 to 90-day review time at all. So just know that clock has not started yet at this step in the process. So once you have accepted that, you have to confirm that you will provide a complete submission within 8 months, and then that you will let us know within approximately 1 month, specifically when you intend to submit that dossier. So again, that we can be prepared, we can have an SME panel lined up, ready to go, and we can make sure that those timelines are being met so you have an expedited process as much as possible. That proposed cost estimate that you will get within this process is valid for 8 months from the time we issue it. And so after that, we may need to revise it if there's changes. And we certainly will not, again, convene that SME panel or get that official timeline going until we've received that firm anticipated submission date. It's been confirmed, and you've let us know at least 30 days prior to the submission when we should expect that dossier. And then, so again, if failure to meet any of those timelines within that process will, may delay that review timeline or those goals, those target goals we're looking for. And if anything changes, we may need to reassess that cost estimate at a later point in time. There's just an example image of kind of a price estimate there of what we've generated so far. So once that's being done within this process, step 3, assuming that you've let us know when to expect the dossier, you've signed the cost estimate, all that stuff, AFCO will generate a secure link for a submitter to upload their full dossier, any type of data that you would need to submit with your conclusion. And that would come through AFCO only. And so again, it's a secure Dropbox link. We want to make sure that you all know that information is protected. The only people within AFCO that has access to that is AFCO staff, which is myself and some of our administrative staff, and then the SMEs that are participating in the process under contract with Kansas State Olathe, Garrett, and Haley. So at any point in time, just know that we can ensure the safety of that information and that it's housed within AFCO. And so we'll provide we'll provide the link to upload documents through AFCO and a link for you to make that secure payment, however you would like to do that. Again, just a flow diagram to kind of illustrate there what we've just talked about with definitions at AFCO.org, step heading to that appropriate investigator, that cost estimate that's provided, signed, and then materials submitted to AFCO, final materials submitted to AFCO for review. All right, and I think with that covers my portion of this. I think I went ahead. I was speaking ahead of my slides. So, Garrett, if you want to come up, I think we're on step 4 for you. So, go back for a minute. That's yours? All right. Yeah, no worries. So, thank you all. That's my portion.
I can see that this might be a little bit confusing. So Austin has described the administrative side for the AFCO side of the SRIS program. So I'm going to pick up step 3 on the SRIS side of the process. So once the submitter is uploaded, they've uploaded their dossier, or we're going to call it the submission package. That might be analogous with dossier, but just for our standpoint, we're going to call it the submission package. The firm has submitted it. It's going to be routed to us, and we're going to do an initial review for completeness. So that's going to be done by the AFCO investigator, as well as either myself and or the scientific lead. So we're just going to look to make sure all the sections are present. We're not going to go over do a detailed scientific review. It's just, are all of the components of the submission there? Are the materials well organized? Is the grammar? And see if it's ready to move forward through SRS processing, or if it needs to be sent back to the submitter for clerical error or edits. So if I could give a little bit of feedback on to anybody potentially submitting a dossier, here is where we're going to catch grammatical errors, things that might not necessarily be interpreted correctly because the way you've set up your document. So in preparation, submission, the quality of your submission is going to be caught right here. So to make sure that all the components are here, as well as everything reads correctly, reads scientifically, and the grammar is correct. I know that might seem a little bit silly to think that the grammar may not be correct, but when it really comes down to interpreting science, words are very strong, and we have to make sure the grammar is correct so our subject matter experts can correctly interpret the information you've got. So going on to step 4, so we've received the submission. Now it is my responsibility to go through our subject matter pool, our database of subject matter experts, and find the right reviewers for this particular submission. So I'm going to go through our database, use some keywords, identify people that have the qualifications to review this particular ingredient. If we don't have anybody offhand, what we'll do is we might do some targeted recruitment. So I think I went back. Apologize. So once I've identified a subset of people in that in our database, what I'm going to look through is their curriculum vitae, that's CV. See what kind of research they've done to make sure that they've had some research experience in this particular ingredient. So I'm going to look through their conflict of interest, make sure they haven't worked for this firm, or they haven't done research for this firm, they don't have grant money coming from this firm, and make sure their annual subject matter expert training is up to date. And then from there, that subset of people that I've identified, I'll narrow it down a little bit further to make sure we've got the right people, and I'll write up a contract. I'm not going to send it yet, but I'll write up a contract and get it ready for signatures. So just to give you a little bit of background on who these subject matter experts are, and we've recruited people from universities, independent consultants, as well as some industry professionals when it's applicable. They've submitted their applications, very detailed, up-to-date curriculum vitae, their specific areas of expertise, as well as confidential, I apologize, conflict of interest forms to make sure that we don't have any potential conflict of interest with them reviewing any particular ingredient. And so once we've reviewed their materials, we've determined they're eligible to be a subject matter expert. We then grant them access to our SRS regulatory training modules that gives them a little bit of background on regulatory aspects. We're recruiting people that are really, really experts in their field. They're university professors, university researchers, etc. They may not have the most regulatory background, but with this training, it gives them the information that they would need in order to review a submission. So getting into step 5. So remember, the submission has been given to us. I've started to look through our subject matter expert pool. AFCO will then issue the firm a invoice. And so that can be done through, we're hoping to have a AFCO payment link, but if that doesn't work for a particular firm, we can probably take a check or some type of bank transfer. So I will mention that the review process will not begin. I will not send my contract out to the subject matter expert until we have payment in hand. So we're not going to start really anything detailed on our process until we actually have the payment. So we have a little bit of skin in the game on both ends. So from there, I get the contracts back from the subject matter experts. Then the review process begins. We're targeting a 90-day review clock. So once we get all my contracts back in, I will send out the submission package to our subject matter experts, initiating that 90-day that 90-day review clock. So once the panelists have the submission, their first job is within the 14 days of access to the materials. They need to do an initial review for completeness. Now we've looked at completeness from more of an administrative aspect. The subject matter experts in this initial review, they're looking at it for scientific completeness. So to make sure that they have all the research that they need to cite for this particular ingredient, because remember, we're targeting having really key thought leaders in this particular field reviewing a particular ingredient submission. So they'll know the literature that needs to be present in this submission package. So that's what they're looking for within the first 14 days. And so again, like I said, any information that they see is missing, they're going to ask for it. Any clarification that they may need, they're going to submit it to me. Where hopefully we won't have too much of this, but this is an iterative process. So if it happens, we can initiate a stop clock. We do not have to initiate a stop clock, but we can if we need to request additional information based off what the subject matter experts are requesting. And so that can be up to 30 days. If we need something longer, that we have the availability to do that, but it's going to be granted by a case-by-case basis. So, and then once the submitter has the information that we've requested, they can submit it again through that AFCO, that secure link that AFCO will send out. So once that initial review for completeness has been completed, it's now the job as subject matter expert to do an independent review, just giving us their preliminary thoughts. Just, I've read through this, it is complete. Here is my general recommendation. These are my scientific notes. Any potential clarification questions that come up later, we will ask that to be turned in within 30 days of access to the materials, unless a stop clock is initiated. From there, once I have all the preliminary reviews from the subject matter experts, due date 30 days, once I have them all, we will allow informal communication between subject matter experts. So we'll grant them, every one of them, access to like a discussion board via a system called Basecamp, and that's where our subject matter experts can communicate amongst themselves, things like, well, hey, I think we need clarification here. What do y'all think? I'm looking for this citation. Have y'all seen it somewhere? It's those kind of conversations, just very informal conversations that happen within this. And then if any questions arise that the submitter needs to address, we can, again, initiate a stop clock if necessary, and hopefully give the firm somewhere around 14 days. Again, if needed, we could give them longer to submit information to us so we can continue the review. So at this point, continuing in step 6, the subject matter experts have reviewed for completeness. They've given us their initial thoughts. They have talked amongst themselves. And now, within 60 days of being granted access to the information, we're asking them to give us a final review. So the final review, is some type of written report that identifies their preliminary thoughts, as well as the thoughts that they have generated after the discussions with the other subject matter experts. So again, within 60 days. And then once I have received that final subject matter expert review, that final report, I will instigate a panel meeting where the SRS team, the AFCO investigator, and the subject matter expert panel will come together and discuss what our recommendation would be. So we'll discuss, any potential safety safety concerns, if we need to maybe tweak the definition a little bit, discuss the science behind this submission, to see what we want to recommend to the IDC. So this is where I kind of see it as almost like a jury. It has to be unanimous, that everybody on the panel has to agree that there is not a safety concern for this particular ingredient. And if we can agree with that, we can agree to the name of the ingredient, the definition that is proposed, we can proceed. So from this meeting, I'll draft up meeting notes that will eventually get put into our final recommendation submission. But we want to reflect every subject matter expert's conclusions within this panel. So it's not Dr. Ashebrandner's opinion, it is the opinion of every panelist of the panel, as well as the AFCO investigator and the SRS team. So just to give you a little bit of a photographic representation of this, we have materials provided to the subject matter experts. They're going to do that review for completeness. If they have questions, they can request clarification. A stop clock will be initiated. Once the firm has addressed those questions, within 30 days, the preliminary independent review needs to be completed. Once all of those are submitted to me, I'll open up informal communication channels between the subject matter experts, and I'll be part of that as well. If any of them have questions for me, they can reach out. If during that discussion brings up any questions, we can initiate a stop clock, send these questions to the firm, wait for them to respond. Once they've given us any clarification questions that arise, they've addressed them adequately, we can continue on to the panelists giving us their final review of their thoughts, and then we can have our final panel meeting where we all discuss it, and then from that final panel meeting we'll generate a draft of the final SRS report. So I'm going to go over a few of the documents that are going to be generated from this. There are 3 big documents that will come from this panel. The first is the SRS full scientific report. So that's drafted by me, and it is based on the panel meeting discussion and the independent subject matter expert reviews. So taking those reports, putting them together into one long document. It's going to be reviewed by the scientific lead, and it has to be signed and approved by all the panelists for this ingredient. So in doing it this way, we want to make sure that every panelist reads the report and ensures that their opinion and their recommendation of the safety for this ingredient has been adequately addressed within this document. This document is not going to be publicly available, and it will mostly be kept by AFCO just for record keeping. And we'll have the recommendation report. So that is an executive summary reflecting the panel's conclusions. So that's going to be drafted by me. It'll be reviewed by the scientific lead, and it'll be signed by one of the SRAS representatives. So this will end up going to the IDC. But we'll talk about that here in a second. And then the last document that comes up is what we're calling the SME panel summary letter. That is a plain language summary of the scientific evaluation. It's going to be signed by one of the SRS representatives, and it will also be signed by a representative from the submitter. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the president of the company. It could be maybe head of regulatory or something along those lines. But we're asking the firm to sign off on this document to indicate whether they would choose to proceed with this going to IDC or withdraw the submission. So, like I said, what we've drafted a SRS full report that has the long summary of all the subject matter experts' opinion and signed by all the subject matter experts, as well as the panel summary letter. We're going to provide that to the submitter, and they'll have 14 days to respond. So again, we're going to ask them to sign and acknowledge whether they would like this letter to proceed to AFCO IDC, or if they have an issue with the panel's conclusions in our report, they can choose to withdraw that notification. And so if they choose, they can report a justified conflict of interest, and if it is justified enough, we might instigate a repeating review or potentially taking one reviewer off of that particular ingredients report. So that's part of why we're giving the firm the full report that has all the names of the subject matter experts and their conclusions to the firm, so that if they identify a potential conflict of interest, that can arise and they can let us know. But hopefully we foresee that not happening, but we're at least preparing for that to potentially happen. All right, so once we get the go-ahead from the firm, they choose to proceed with the notifying IDC of our recommendation. We will provide the SME summary letter, as well as the recommendation report, not the full report. That's the recommendation report is that executive summary. We'll provide it to the AFCO investigator that we're working with. They'll send it off to IDC, where it will be considered at the next IDC meeting. And so because IDC meeting agendas are publicly available, some of this information will be present in IDC agenda, and that allows, that is publicly available, and that will allow time for public comment. And for record retention, so for all documentation, all notes between subject matter experts will be archived within AFCO's records. Whether the firm chooses to proceed or withdraw with their submission, and it's not going to be publicly available, but it will be available to state regulators if questions arise. So it's one of those things, let's say a couple years down the road, somebody reaches out to an investigator for a particular ingredient. They know we reviewed something similar to this. At one point in time, they can request that information to see how to proceed with the firm's inquiry. So, with that, I will leave it to Aaron to describe the rest of the process with IDC.
Okay, so I had the easiest part here because this really doesn't change regardless of whatever pathway an ingredient, a new ingredient or a modification is coming to the IDC. There's not a lot of room for creativity here. So as an investigator, some of you have had a lot of experience with this. We have some new investigators as well. So what you'll end up doing is you will be the investigator will review the panel's recommendation. You need to look at it. This is your time to see, should there be any adjustments needed? Now, not to the data, because you're not that subject matter expert, but you are the subject matter expert on what an AFCO definition looks like. Is the name of that product, is it palatable? The definition, is it something that is a good AFCO definition? So that's where the investigator needs to look at that, and they need to speak up if something just isn't sitting quite right with them. My hunch is there will not be many changes at that point. I can't imagine that there will be much more back and forth. I think those conversations will have been had earlier on at the first level of submission. So any questions that the investigator has at that time should be answered. Again, common name. Does the definition make sense? Does it look appropriate for an AFCO definition? I think especially early on, I think David and I will probably have a little more eyes on this as well, and we'll probably lead the investigator a little bit, encourage, have a conversation with them as we all try to get this solid under our feet. But the investigator finalizes the investigator report. What that is, if you're not familiar with it, it's just a very simple document where the investigator basically fills out a header, puts a date on it. Is this a new definition? Is it a modification? They'll include the name that's up for consideration. They will include what the ingredient name number is. And for those of you that are not familiar with that, for instance, miscellaneous products is section 60, so it would be 60 point whatever the next number would be in that section. So maybe 60.119, whatever that happens to be. So I really count on the investigator to know their section. They need to know what that next number is. But again, we're working on that together, so we have a couple different eyes on that. And then you'll submit that through the online portal that we use. It's called Basecamp, and investigators have access to that for the Ingredient Definitions Committee. You can also give David and myself a heads up that you've submitted a report, and it will go into the IDC folder, and then we'll catch it and we'll add it to the agenda for the next meeting. So That should not be any different to any investigator that's had this happen before. This is where the Ingredient Definitions Committee comes into play. So those of you that are part of that committee, this is your role. We will have to have a motion to accept the new or modified definition as official. What is different this time around is that AFCO removed the requirement to have a tentative definition out of the bylaws last year. So everything will be coming in as official. It's going to be coming in as a motion to official. And that's going to help expedite this process. No more are we waiting on that tentative status to go through 6 months and then get back into official status. So that is something investigators will have to get used to, but it's okay if you submit something as tentative. We'll fix that, and we'll make sure that that's all kosher and has been submitted as an official. There will be discussion time for questions or concerns. Once we make that motion in that second, it's open for discussion. David and I have been including all of the proposed definitions on the agenda, and that agenda gets published. So we are trying to make it very transparent and easy to find. So you can follow along with the IDC by looking at the agendas that are posted on the AFCO site for each of the mid-year and annual meetings. And also we do spring and fall virtual meetings usually. That's dependent on the amount of material that we have. So if we need that spring and fall virtual meeting, we will have one. But that gets published, it gets posted, and everybody can see the proposed definition. So bring your questions and comments during that time. If you have any concerns, any questions, hopefully they can be addressed satisfactorily. We prefer not to get into rewriting definitions at that time. Sometimes it can evolve into that. We start wordsmithing. If it's really simple and easy and it's just a matter of a quick grammar change or a comma or a period, that's not a problem at all. I would not want to discourage that type of modification, but if it's getting into something outside of that, we're going to have to table it. We'll probably call for a tabling, and we'll come back to it. So once the discussion is had, we'll have a vote by the committee members. The committee members then will either pass with recommendation to official, or they'll turn it down. So once the meeting minutes are finalized and we get our committee to vote and pass the minutes, we will pass the committee actions on to the board of directors. The board of directors, that's the next step. So they have to review each of the recommendations. The board of directors then has to vote to take that recommendation from the committee and recommend it to membership. A lot of times people forget that, so we got to get the board to agree to that as well. The board will agree to it as long as it meets processes. They're really there to make sure that we did not do anything outside of the bylaws or did something that would cause a hiccup or a problem to the process. They're not really reviewing it at that time to see if it is a definition that they like per se. They'll have their opportunity during the membership vote if there's some concerns there. But I always listen to the board of directors if they have questions, because it's a very good indicator that there is probably going to be questions by the membership. So it's always good to hear that if they have some concern about something. So then the membership votes, just like this week. All right, tomorrow we have a business meeting. Membership's voting on work that Ingredient Definitions Committee has passed along to the board, and the board is recommending acceptance. And then that will go into the next publication. However, the regulators don't have to wait for that to go into publication. It is official at that moment. Once the membership agrees to it and the membership passes it, that definition or that modification is official. So I just wanted to let you understand the time frame there. I probably should share. For those, I should never make the assumption that you've been to these meetings or know how this works. When the states and the federal agencies are there for the vote, each agency only gets one vote. In a close vote, we will count. So then they will actually take roll call, and they'll get a final vote to see if the majority rules. So I think that's where we end. Oh, no, I forgot the official publication. So the investigator is responsible making sure that the AFCO association is getting those definitions or changes, modifications into Chapter 6 of the OP correctly. They'll be responsible for reviewing their sections. If something needs replaced, deleted, that's the investigators catching that and letting the association know, yep, this looks good, you made all the changes correctly, or you missed this, or whatever. The investigator is there to catch that. And I know David and I also go over each of that. I like it when the investigator is there and making sure that those edits were made, but we will give it another set of eyes quickly to go over it, make sure things are correct. And that's pretty much all I have, I believe, for the investigators and the end of this.